The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Welcome back to another Mission Minded on the left-hand side. He is Michael Coleman. Are you holding that microphone? You're going to hold
I'm
that.
I'm holding it this time because I can't find a comfortable place. I'm leaning forward, so I'm like, you know what?
That is going to be uncomfortable for 25 or 30 minutes, but we'll see if you get through it. He is Mike.
You may have to put it down.
It won't be the first time you've been uncomfortable in that seat. Michael Coleman, Heart of Alabama Food Bank. He's the CEO. They cover 35 counties, the great state of Alabama. I'm Tony Curry. Tony Curry Radio. By the way, we are setting new records every single week with our listenerships. We've added 3 new shows to the Tony Curry Radio format, and I couldn't do it without the likes of Michael Coleman, who's been with us for years now. And of course, we have another show called Bite by Bite, which we do right after this one. Mission Minded, one of my favorite shows because we get to talk about business. And I became a businessman since I got to know Michael. He was one of my first clients on the Tony Curry Radio. And so to do a show with him, I'm just super blessed for that. I did want to talk to you about something we've never gotten into. And it hit me after this P. Diddy thing. If you haven't heard what's going on with this, it is just mind-blowingly crazy. P. Diddy, 54, he's won 3 Grammys, been up for another 13, has sold over 12 million albums, responsible for Usher, Notorious Big. I mean, the guy's about as big as it gets when it comes to rap. And that's just the musical side of it. When you talk about his clothesline, I mean, the guy's bigger. He's worth $3 billion. He's unbelievable.
Sure.
For the most part, have never heard a bad thing about the guy. And then all of a sudden, we see this video of him obviously abusing some woman in another elevator video. And he comes out, lays it on the table, says, I was a bad person. I made a serious mistake. And I think, okay, he's coming clean on this. That's a good start. That's great. And then all of a sudden, the state goes after him. Now, of course, a federal case against him. Justin Bieber, there's now pictures of him and Justin Bieber when Justin was 13 years of age. I mean, it is all coming out, and everybody in the world's like, he abused me. This was a tape I made when I was 12. I mean, it's just gotten absolutely nasty. We have talked briefly about, when you have a great, all I can think is Michael Jackson. We still love Michael Jackson. I heard some music this morning. We'll Rock With You. It's a fantastic song. I love Michael Jackson. We know all the stuff, the peripheral, they call it peripheral, but the little boy thing, sleeping in the beds, the bubbles, the weird rides, the whole Elephant Man, all that strange stuff. And I've always wondered, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. How do you, and I know that each instance is differently, and the other thing is like Boar's Head. I get Boar's Head meat up at Publix, and I know Publix really helps you out at Heart Alabama Food Bank, but they had some, I think it was listeria issue where several people lost their life, and this is a top line meat company. This is big time. This is the best meat you can get, sandwich meat. And now all of a sudden they got damage control. I think Chipotle had a big issue with salmonella a couple of years ago, and then a lot of people say, I'll never eat there again. And I just ate there a couple nights ago. It was fantastic. But damage control, depending on what you're trying to control and what you're trying to fix, just talk a little bit about that. When something falls in your lap, you're like, what do we do here? Do you deny? Do you lock all the doors until you have a statement? Do you come out and say, we screwed up? What do you do?
Well, there's a lot of, as with most things, it's a very gray area. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So let me go back to the whole Diddy thing. So I have been very familiar because I've chased several rabbit holes on this for well over a year. Diddy's bodyguard came out on this, and this has been on social media. So there's lots of people who follow this on social media. And then once the algorithms on social media, the reels pick up, and that's kind of the content, then more and more started coming up. So I've been hearing about all these Diddy parties for years, and then so I already was familiar with basically Justin Bieber was turned over to him. You see Justin Bieber sometimes with mental health issues, and it's very likely it's because he was turned over by his parents because he wanted stardom, and Diddy promised all those things. But it's well known that everybody from Usher on down to anybody Diddy's mentored has always come at a price, and that is his debauchery or debauchery. Um, there's no level of depravity that his bodyguards have talked about and people who intimately know him that he will not sink to. When I heard that there was 1,000 bottles of lubricant found, that there was narcotics, all that, that's stuff they've been saying for a long time. And there's so many of these things out there on the internet, you begin to wonder, well, if this is true, why hasn't he come under the attention of the authorities?
Maybe because they're
And
working the case.
so and then you end up, if you talk about these things, you end up feeling like a conspiracy theorist. And people are like, oh man, you're a nut job, you'll believe anything. And some of it's just so hard to tell what's actually the truth out there on social media. But I've been kind of caught up in following a lot of that, and then more and more people have been willing to come out and discuss it. So when all this broke about him getting arrested, I was already, when I say well informed, I was already had been introduced to the things that were shocking to so many people because it was already kind of public for a while. And the problem is, this has been going on for years. And what happened was there were so many people involved and there were so many people who witnessed it. As a matter of fact, the thing that really blew it out of the water was when Cat Williams was on Shannon Sharp's podcast. And he even said, he talked about this, that he was offered $50 million 4 different times. But it came down, he said he and Ludacris were both offered that deal. One took it, one didn't. And he said the reason he didn't take it was because of exactly what's coming out right now. Because if you give in to some people even call it the Illuminati, that feel like they're above the law, they have power, they do what they want to do, they can pay any price. They're king of the world. There's nothing that they can't have access to. And so they throw out those kind of dollars. And he said, I absolutely refuse not to. And a lot of people were saying, oh, Cat Williams, there's no way that's true. And he even said, hey, it's coming out in 2024 is going to be the year. And here it is. It's coming to fruition, just as he said on that show. Now, when you look back on all that, there's lots of things that lead into that. And this is before we even get into really our main topic, but there's lots of blame to be assessed. So you have somebody who's a serial rapist. You have somebody who's just hedonism at its finest, just serving every desire in his heart and has the power and ability to do it. And you look at a group of, you look at parents who want to achieve stardom and fame so bad for their child that they're willing to ignore, that they're willing to turn over a 13-year-old child to the care of somebody who, I mean, let's face it, there's nothing good about rap music. I mean, the content in it celebrates the demeaning of women, the debauchery, abuse. I understand it's a format for people to talk about their experience. So it's good for the artist, but it does not produce anything good for society. And so when you look at a man like that who's a leading industry, you get caught up in the fame, you get caught up in all that, but you're turning them over to somebody who has promoted things that go against the average person's values. So I think the parents and this chasing for fame, our 15 minutes of fame, this people who are striving to make living on TikTok, to be an influencer, they crave power, they crave fame, they crave recognition more than anything else in this world. And that's the culture that we live in. And when people give into that, there's some people that even knew what was coming and what was expected, still signed on for it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know what's coming, but if that's the price for fame, then so be it.
And you'd be
And
surprised, I think, and we're talking every single level. Certainly the model business. We've seen this in
oh, no doubt,
Playboy, the Hugh Hefner
no doubt.
stories. I mean, if it has anything to do with sex and money, they're interchangeable
But
at so many
but
different
here's
levels.
what's so disgusting is this culture is not just found in hip hop, and it's found throughout Hollywood, and it's been there for generations.
Sure.
You hear nightmare stories about children, pedophilia in Hollywood, and executives. A mom would come in with her daughter, and the daughter would be separated from the mom and would go in. They talk Judy Garland, and children being separated when they are sometimes even prepubescent, being
Mhm.
taken into executive office. And hey, if you want a career, you're going to play the game, and you just become objects. And it's people using power. It's people using.
Let's just be clear here too. We're not saying that everyone does this. We're just saying
No, no, no.
it's
Yeah,
prevalent. It happens. I mean,
I get. I'm
obviously,
painting
yeah,
it with a
yeah.
broad brush. What I'm saying is the industry controls the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. He's a prime example. When you have power and you have recognition and you have prestige, um, it's a different country for you. You people, and they don't, and they feel like, hey, I've been doing this for. I mean, Diddy's been doing this, and just think about it. And this is what yet is to come out is all of the people who attended these parties and knew that it was going on, knew that pedophilia is going on, and that abuse was going on, that attended these parties but were silent because they're like, yeah, I know it's happening.
They're guilty.
Yeah, well, they're guilty by association, and rightly so. And in their silence, and it's going to come out because the receipts were kept. He videotaped this, so
That's the other thing that is amazing to this. In case you know, he videotaped everything. I mean, his
he.
bodyguards. I mean, it's crazy.
That's right. So he dated Jennifer Lopez. I mean, she was at those parties. And now everybody's scrambling. You hear these people on podcasts talking about, yeah, people who are at these parties are scrambling right now saying, is my name going to get associated? Is my name going to come out? Yeah, a lot of names are going to come out. And the question is going to be, hey, Hollywood, or hey, famous person, or hey, rich person, hey, powerful person, why didn't you step up in defense of those who don't have a voice? And I hope society crushes their grape nuts because they deserve they're playing at $20 million for a film, $10 million to represent this brand, no accountability, and they do some of the most horrific things that they're speakable. Now, let me break that differently than somebody who does something within a company or associated with a company or a company itself doing something that leaks out to the public. And how do you protect that brand?
Yeah, and that's really where I wanted to go. And I was using it as an example. I didn't want to go Heidi Fleiss or Jeffrey Epstein on you because, I mean, we obviously know they're guilty of sin and we do want to see their grape nuts crushed. With that being said,
Well, thank you for giving me a few minutes to vent about that because
no, I
really,
feel your passion. I think a lot of people would agree with you, but sometimes things come out that you can control, and sometimes there's things you
That's
can't
right.
control. And so I kind of want you to deviate the difference between those two things and how you deal with those.
Yeah. So I will tell you, I've been involved with an organization. I will obviously not identify that organization. But the first and foremost thing where I, as the leader of the organization, when something becomes known, that you instantly go into, okay, how do we respond? So I've been in the nonprofit space and you have a board of directors. So you don't get the sole voice. It's not like you own the company. You are the face of a company, but you don't get the sole voice. Well, when something comes out, you're like, okay, am I willing to cover up something, or am I going to be a person of integrity, even if it means coming back on me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a decision that every leader has to make. And then when you do, you also, if you have a board of directors or some type of governing authority over you, then you have to make sure that if you're going to be that person of integrity, that you have to say, come what may, I am not going to hide facts. I'm not gonna, the cover up, whatever it is. Now, I also think that it's normal business. Like businesses encounter things all the time, and so you don't want to call a press conference and to announce something that's happened within the company, maybe, somebody stealing from the company, or somebody within the company that's nefarious or whatever. Lots of times, yeah, you could just fire that person or whatever. But if it shows something that's actually going to reflect on your brand, then to me, as a rule, it's always better to handle it up front. If it is a serious danger of getting out to the public, and not so much just getting out to the public, but if you don't fill that information void, other people will fill
Yes.
that void.
Mhm.
So the question, it's always best to be transparent. It's always best to be out front and to share information. How many times have we seen something come out and at first you get denial, and then the public keeps clamoring because more and more dribbles out, and then they recognize the institution, the person, whatever. They recognize, okay, I can't throw up the plausible deniability anymore. Now I have to say, well, something happened, but it's not what it is. And you're always chasing your tail. You're always chasing the public.
And let me just say this
go,
while
jump
I
in.
think about it. But when you deny and you know you're guilty, that guilt association will always haunt you. It will always follow you. O.J. Simpson may have not spent any time in jail for killing his wife, but everyone knew what happened, and he was never the same. Now, he had to be narcissistic enough in his life to live his life, knowing that no one liked him, and of course, he had his close-knit group of friends and never left it.
Sure.
But I mean, it's important to remember that we are a redemptive society.
Yeah.
We have a guy like Michael Vick who fought dogs, who people swore off, said the guy should be killed for it. He should be put on the electric chair for it, and then received $100 million contract 2 years later from the National Football League.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden is an ambassador for pet. So, I mean, we are a redemptive society. We want to forgive, and we give more than one or two, but you got to come clean first. And so when people don't realize it, again, it depends on what we're coming clean on, right? I mean, is this something that's going to put you away for jail for a long time, or are you just admitting to the wife that you just slept with your neighbor?
Yeah, because I mean, people always, you always say, okay, if I am transparent, if I'm truly sorry for what happened, even if it wasn't by you, it was the effect that maybe the company you represent had. If you are not I mean, you always are thinking about, okay, if I do become completely transparent and lay it all bare, it may be something that the company doesn't. And so it's doesn't recover from. So it becomes a calculated risk. Maybe attorneys are advising you, do not say a word, do not say a word. Maybe there's other interests that are applying pressure. All of that is understandable. I get it. In my particular case, I informed my board that I would deal with this issue forthrightly. I would report it to anybody that had a vested interest in it or affected in a real way. And that, however, I'm not going to call a press conference and blab it to the media and invite attention to it unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I also made it very clear, if confronted by this case, it was not law enforcement, but let's just say it was.
Yep.
If law enforcement was involved, if other authorities were involved, I am not going to compromise my personal integrity, because just as you said, once you do that, so let's say I come out and say nothing happened, at any point that I have to backtrack and say, well, something happened, then all trust that I've spent years to try to build is eroded. And so, but some people, going back to the people we were talking about at the beginning of this, feel like, well, who cares? I've got enough power. I can't be brought down. I am, in their own minds, too big to fail, too big to prosecute. I mean, and Diddy's finding it out in prison, offering $50 million and an ankle bracelet to serve his time out in jail.
Isn't that strange that he would offer that as his bond, because that $50 million numbers come up quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, but it's that mindset of, well, I'm rich beyond. They don't have the right to hold me here. That my crimes are, I'm just above all this. And unfortunately,
he would have been better off to
everywhere.
offer $1 million, because putting a $50 million makes it look like he's guilty as hell. He knows he's done something wrong. I would have done it, but you're right. Putting 50 million makes it looks like he's and one guy that I think has done it right, and it took him 3 or 4 times, is Tiger Woods. I mean,
Yeah,
he denied everything, got the 7-iron upside the head, wrecked the car. Then, of course, he got, the DUI. Then he got the drug thing on the side. But I mean, he finally came out and just said, listen, man, I thought, and I thought it was just poetic. It was almost poetic. He said, listen, I got away with it so long. I'm Tiger Woods and no one's going to take me down and I'm above all this. And
that's
now I
right.
realize that I'm not. And
That's right.
it's again, are you sorry because you got caught or are you sorry because you're truly sorry for what you did?
That's right. So that's if those are things that, you're guilty of. I've also seen it to where you have less like people are always trying to, like in Hollywood or powerful people, they hire people that are always trying to manage their images. So, and this gets mixed up in this as well because you're always trying to present your brand, whatever that is. If it's you, if it's an individual, if it's a company, you're always trying to put it in the best light. But there's so many things that happen that when you follow Hollywood and I follow a lot of stories, not from an admiration standpoint, not from I get my news and my fix from them, but just how fake and artificial everything is. A lot of these dramas that so-called affect them in a negative way are actually created by their own marketing team to elicit sympathy or to get them in the news, to get them as a hot commodity, or to just because they've gone from A list to B list to C list, and things like that sometimes can elevate you back in the news, maybe get you a part in a movie, create a buzz about you or whatever. And I know that's not exactly, but it's just where our society is going. We idolize the famous, and um, and it's that desire leads to a very much a lack of transparency. I agree with you 100%. Most people, if you make a mistake, and I am a big favor of this. Now, I tell you what, let's take it from the company level to the personal level as a leadership issue.
Sure.
There have been times to where I have made a decision, and that decision was not a good decision. Turns out it wasn't a good decision. And all you can do is own that decision. And I've called directors in and I said, listen, I was ready to go down fighting for this decision. And it turns out I was 100% wrong. It's incredibly humbling. But to a group of directors or people under you, they're like, okay, this boss owns it. He's not trying to throw anybody else under the bus. It's a very valuable thing. And I've been there, unfortunately, more times than I'd like to admit, where I'm saying, hey, I was wrong, but it's almost refreshing. It's almost soul cleansing to go through that process to realize, hey, I'm not up here just because you have a label like CEO, or you have this influence, or you have this record, or you have this movie or whatever. We elevate ourselves up instead of just seeing that, no, we're people in this world. We have brokenness. And when I start using power and influence to only serve self rather than serve those that I'm leading, or serve those or to help those that I'm serving, like in our community, when you use power self-serving way, inevitably you're going to find yourself in a Diddy type situation.
Yep.
Not to the
Not to that extreme, no.
to the length that he has. But this is what you see: unfettered power, access, influence for 30 years.
Yeah.
And this is the result.
We always talk about you should act like someone's always watching you, and it's most important to act the best when they're not, because there is one person that's always watching us, and that's the man upstairs. And I always, it's for a bigger picture. I always think to myself, what's at our age, we start asking questions like, what do you want to be remembered by? And what is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be? And I think of people who lost it towards the end of their lives, whether it be Joe Paterno, who, whether it was right or wrong, he knew what was going on, but he will always be remembered for the Jerry Sandusky situation, which
That's
is
right.
really unfortunate because he gave his life and
He was a
heart.
great coach.
And I think he was a great guy. I think he was, and I think I think he got a little senile. And I think he had so many people covering his tracks for a long period. He wasn't even recruiting anymore. He was just his name was just
He
on
was
the
just a
board.
figurehead.
Um,
But he was the Penn State brand.
he was,
And those are people who denied. But think of what they put that institution and football and sports while he was raping young men in the Penn State shower, locker room shower. And people saw that. And I even saw one coach that was I mean, he brought it up,
mhm.
but he also didn't walk away from his job when it wasn't dealt with.
Yep. And if Jerry, not Jerry, but Joe, if he didn't know about it, he should have known about it. And that's where
There's no doubt.
that's what's one of those
No doubt
things
he
where,
knew about it.
you're sinning if you say something and you're sinning if you don't. And that's where, wow, that's really sad that you didn't know enough about your program. And so that's where his guilt of association. Bill Cosby's another guy where, golly, I grew up my entire life watching Bill Cosby. My kids watched my kids watched Little Bill. It was fantastic. It was great. And really for the black culture, it was a really important movement for the black culture because we hadn't seen a family like the Huxtables. We hadn't seen a very successful, we were used to seeing the Good Times families, right? And the Sanford and Sons. We never saw a rich, successful black family. And that was really important culturally for this country.
Yeah.
And again, a really funny guy, and now he'll never be remembered for any of the stuff. There's no way to redeem yourself. And I guess depending on at what point in your life, Diddy's 54 years of age, can he save it? Sure, he can. I believe that. Now he may have to save it in prison.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he's going to. I don't think it was ever going to see the light of day.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have numerous lawsuits that are going to strip him from wealth. I mean, he'll always have some hidden wealth that people can't access in his life in jail. But I think I do believe at some point he's going to take his own life or somebody's going to take his life. I don't believe he's going to live.
I think he will too. I think he's probably already tried. And
I think no matter what he has done, he's going to be remembered just like Bill Cosby and Jerry Sandusky. I mean, Joe Paterno, all those. If he would have come forward at some point and said, I've been involved in some things I'm ashamed of. I don't want to be that person. I want to, I'll pay whatever cost I need to, and I'm walking away. People have wide open arms that go, because we connect with our own brokenness.
I don't know if anyone's ever admitted that much, though.
That's what I'm saying.
A little bit's fine, but I mean,
but nobody's going to give him sympathy. The only reason he's where he is because he got arrested.
No, and just because you admit something doesn't mean you're not going to be disciplined for it either.
That's right.
You just told me I thought you were sleeping around with one girl. Now you're telling me you slept with 13. Well, I appreciate that. I know that makes you feel better, but that doesn't change the fact you slept around with 13 women. And so,
not even women. I mean, children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It bums me out, because I'm a human, and I always like to think that humans, I think we all have good hearts. I know it's not the person, it's the evil behind the person, and I know it's the devil doing his work, and not take any responsibility off the individual. Don't get me wrong, but when we're angry with somebody, we should be angry with the fear and anxiety that they bring us through. That the devil. Through them, it's the devil getting to their heart. And then when you're talking about successful, I mean, we're all striving. I'm going paycheck to paycheck, and you're right. You're talking about movie stars making $20 million for a movie and stuff. And you're like, and you can't stay out of trouble. You had to get behind the wheel of the car, when you're drunk, and you didn't have to do that. And that's but we'll never know what it's like to be in those shoes because we've never been there. But it does make me realize this, and then I'll let you go. It does make me really appreciate the Michael Jordans of the world. And I got to be careful because I don't know these people either. The Mr. Rogers.
He's got his own debauchery issues,
the Mr. Rogers of the world. These people that have been world famous that people can't find anything on. And I know they're out there. LeBron James, another guy, I think for the most part has done it right. Kobe Bryant, even got tagged for raping.
But you think about people like Bill Gates, always been very respected, built Microsoft and all that. His wife left him and he was one of the primary people on Epstein Island.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's still held up because he's a billionaire and he has the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. and he's given out billions of, I mean, over his time, I think billions of dollars. And so he's done a lot of good. But when you talk about the person and who he is at his core, what's so shocking about all this is when these things come out, you're seeing who the true person is. Like when they feel like you can get away with anything. Like if I felt like if I could get away with it,
Yeah.
I still wouldn't go harm intentionally and abuse another human being, especially a child, for my own sexual gratification. If you do that, then you're like, well, that's the core of who you are. Because anybody can put a front up there. And so we just think, oh, Bill Gates is a great guy. He gives away a lot of money. He hard worked. He did Microsoft. He's done a lot of good for the world. But then you look at who he is behind the scenes, and unfortunately, I think a lot more names are going to be coming out of people we idolize or people we hold up in society as being stand-up people are going to be coming out in more and more type controversies like this.
This is Mission Minded. Keep your mind, your mission on your mind. If you got any thoughts on what we talk about here or any of our shows, of course, you can go back and listen to all of our shows. Just search up Tony Curry Radio Podcast. Tony, it's Curry with a K, Kurre podcast. It's beautiful. You can see all 18 of our shows we do, and they're fantastic. You can go back and listen to all of them. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Coming up next right here on our network of radio stations, not to mention wherever you get your favorite podcast, search Bite by Bite. It's a wonderful show that's specific to Feeding America and the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. That comes up next right here on TKR.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.